43 Trillion Park, Wamagogo.
What's really good, ladies and gentlemen? It's your boy Prof. Real name Ntuli, no gimmicks. You know what it is. I'm back out here. I know it's been a minute, but I'm here today face to face. I want to give you the lowdown on what was happening in the 70s, 80s, and right around the 60s around Swaziland, Eswatini, concerning the ANC and the armed struggle, Umkhonto Wesizwe, and how Eswatini helped with that process. So this is taken from a book titled Number 43, Trillion Park, Wamagogo. That's where the Masilelas used to live. It was an army base for the ANC's armed struggle in Eswatini. So while most might not know it, Eswatini actually played a huge role in the liberation of South Africa and helping the armed struggle, South African armed struggle. So the stories I'm going to be giving you are taken from Elias Masilela's book, who actually grew up here in Eswatini. The family is actually from South Africa, right? So I'm just going to read the preface and give you some of the stories so you know what role we used to play, and that might give you a perspective on what role South Africa can actually help with in the liberation of most other African countries, given what has been done for them before. But more than just that, it's just sharing information and just, you know, touching base with history. So going into it is the preface as written by Elias Masilela. It goes: writing this book was motivated by numerous defining moments in the life and history of the Masilela family, as I observed them through the eyes of a young boy growing in an environment full of tumult. The age to write has gone through peaks and troughs, with the final peak coming in December 2004. So basically the Masilela family came from South Africa and settled in Eswatini, Swaziland back then, in 1965 to find better education for the children. Since in South Africa what was being introduced then was Bantu education. Now Bantu education is a form of education that's really watered down. It was meant for black kids to just learn what was enough for them to work for the white man by the Boers. That was designed by the apartheid regime. The idea was, why would a black kid need to learn how to think? He only needs to learn how to take orders. She only needs to learn how to be sent around and do chores for white families. So that was the setup back then. So the family, the Masilela family, wanted something better for their children, because in Swaziland, the education system was a little better than what was happening in South Africa. It was way, way, way better than Bantu education. So going into it, I had harbored this thought for a long time. To the best of my recollection, the first time the idea crossed my mind was during my student days at the University of Eswatini, UNESCO. So basically, Elias Masilela went to Salesian High School because he lived around Trillion Park in Manzini, and he went to Salesian High School like most of other exiled children, South African children, and then went to the University of Eswatini. Well, we know about Patrice Motsepe and them. They went to the University of Swaziland, which is the University of Eswatini now. What's different about Elias Masilela is that while he was still a student around the University of Swaziland, he would house some of Umkhonto Wesizwe operatives in his dorm room. So the revolution was happening around campus. Following the signing of the Nkomati Accord in March 1984. So the Nkomati Accord was an agreement between the government of Mozambique and the South African government, which was basically the apartheid regime. I don't know how y'all call it. Some call it apartheid, but I'm gonna call it how we call it: apartheid, apartness, driving people apart. Black that side, white that side. Blacks only, whites only. Nah, it was really whites only, and blacks could men were meant to stay away really from what was written white only. So the Nkomati Accord was this deal that was signed between the two countries, Mozambique and South Africa, that allowed Mozambique to trade with South Africa because they needed some money now. One of the biggest economies back then was South Africa, obviously. So they needed to trade. But with that, South Africa said, if you want to trade with us, you have to let us actually enter into your premises and molest, actually like what, fidget with what was happening inside. Now what was happening inside is they were operative, Umkhonto Wesizwe operative. So ANC armed struggle was in Mozambique, just like some of them were in here in Eswatini, and there were like PAC operatives as well. So after signing that deal, that meant that South African forces could actually attack some of the South African operatives, political operatives that were in Mozambique. So the Nkomati Accord was when now the armed struggle wasn't safe in Mozambique. They were attacked by South African forces after signing this deal. The signing followed the assassination in Mamelodi of my brother-in-law by the South African security forces. So there's a guy called Nkosinati. That's Elias's brother-in-law. He has a daughter with Elias's sister, Joanna. If memory serves me well, they have a daughter called Sbongile. She's actually part of the South African army. She followed in her father's footsteps because her father joined Umkhonto Wesizwe and she decided to follow in the footsteps. She joined the army. So Nkosinati was killed by South African forces in Mamelodi after leaving Eswatini. He was gonna move past South Africa and then go up north in exile for more training to fight for the liberation of South Africa. But he wanted to first check with his family when he got that site in Mamelodi. And South African government got some tips that, yo, homeboy is around. So they looked for him, they found him in Mamelodi. That's where he got shot. His story is discussed in detail in chapters 21 and 23. Well, that's just the story that I've given you right now, because, well, I'm not going to be reading you chapters 21 and 23. Find the book, please, and read it. In the period immediately before his death, he had been classified as one of the most wanted terrorists in Swaziland. Well, something had happened in Swaziland. He had been friends with some guys that were trading stolen cars, because sometimes the armed struggle in Swaziland needed transport, right? So the ANC operatives would get these cars from some of these ginsas, the guys who would steal cars. They need them cheap because it was, well, the guerrilla warfare. Guerrilla warfare is not really like friendly, like we're only gonna operate by the law and all that. We operate with the means that are available, which are really quick and accessible at that moment. So they were underground, meaning their operations were meant to be secret. Do them as quick as possible and as quiet as possible. So he would buy cars from this guy who would steal them. So something happened with that guy which involved a robbery and all that. That's how he made it. Nkosinati made it to the list of some of the most wanted in Swaziland.